Hello, this is Avatar Legend. Today I'll be talking about the big AOE meta. This meta has been dominating the patch since the July 4th Warlocks changes. Previously, people have been running 6 knights, 6 mages, alliances that require heavy commitment with 6 units. Then nowadays, people discover that big AOE can easily own such alliances. Nowadays, it's not viable to waste 6 slots on an alliance now, or even 3. You need every single unit to either be a big damage dealer or have a big AoE. So now, we'll discuss what's the late game composition that we are aiming for. Alright, here I have segregated the units into must pick, almost must pick, or certain alternatives when you can't find units from the first two categories. So the must pick category, the first one is Tidehunter. The reason why Tidehunter is a must pick is pretty simple. Since the days of auto chess, Tidehunter has been the strongest unit in the whole game because it can ulti and it can stun a huge radius. So the next one is Techies. I believe that 2-star Techies with a single bomb is probably the most physical damage dealer out of all the big AoEs. Warlock. Warlock is to, of course, counter units that have high HP pool because its Midnight Pulse deals a percentage damage of HP. And of course, Midnight Pulse is also pretty huge. Disruptor. Disruptor is great because of this big AoE meta. If you can get your Disruptor to probably blink gain mana and get the initiative to actually silence a whole bunch of enemy units, Disruptor is one of the best. And lastly, Crystal Maiden. Crystal Maiden is what gets your entire lineup to function at all, because you have to get your stuff off before the enemy gets his stuff off. So yeah, those are the must picks. For the almost must picks, the first two are actually backline DPSs. Medusa also has an ability that can slow people and stun and stone them, and Gyro has the ability of Call Down that actually deals significant AoE damage. Of course, Medusa also forms the Scaled Alliance with Tidehunter, which is very important in the late game. And it's a 4-cost unit, so you could get it earlier. And its Split Shot also helps in trying to apply couple of negative debuffs on others. So Gyrocopter. The good thing about Gyrocopter is that its call down takes effect twice. The bad thing is it's very slow. It's very slow. It's probably one of the worst 5-cost units. The next is Lich. Lich and Necro go together because it provides the Heartless buff, and it's very important if you don't have humans become Heartless alliance. So Lich, well, 1-star Lich. The problem with Lich is really how do you get it to cast its ult, right? So you hope to hide it somewhere so that the Crystal Maiden can get it up, because it really cannot take a lot of damage, and it has to cast its ult for it to even be worthwhile. So I'll put it in the almost must pick. And Necro is not a high impact, direct impact hero, but the continuous burst and sustain and the general healing it's good, as well as the great alliances that it has, both Heartless and Warlock Alliance, which are the two most important alliances in the endgame nowadays. And lastly, Kunkka. Kunkka, the boat is great. It's a 4-cost unit. The boat is huge. But the boat is a little bit slow, and it doesn't have good alliances. I mean, the only good one is human, which could be heartless, could be human, but both are kind of useful, hopefully. So it's also in the almost must pick category. So some of the alternatives, if you can't find units in these two categories, are Puck plus Dragon Knight. I mean, Puck plus Dragon Knight also gives you 3 mages, which also gives you a benefit to some of the magic damage you have. Or if you want 4 warlocks, your 4th warlock could be Alchemist or Shadow Fiend. Or if you manage to find a level 2 Keeper of the Light and you have a level 2 Crystal Maiden, I mean, go for it. But ultimately, I would say that these alternatives have, in the very late game, will have to be replaced by the must picks and almost must picks because they are just superior. Alright, I'll talk about some of the equipable items. Of course, the most important thing would be to gain mana to cast your spells faster. So out of these, I would say Arcane Boots is the best, simply because it gives mana in a AoE radius. Refresher is also great. I mean, if you put it on a Tide or if you put it on a Disruptor, all it has to do is get its out off twice, and you'll definitely win the fight. Blink Dagger is also great because you either put it on your Disruptor or Tide to most likely get the initiation off and win. The other items, I mean, for Brooch, you put it on your front lines, and for Voidstone, you put it on like your little bit more towards the back, like Enigma or Lich, so that you can find a way to gain some mana by attacking. Same goes for the Gloves of Haste, so that's mana gain. For DPS, you can choose any of the DPS. You usually want to pick one DPS item for one DPSer. So if let's say you have a Gyro and a Shadow Fiend, you want to pick 2 of these items. So for Battle Fury, I mean, if I could, I would avoid it, but sometimes it's the best item out of the 3 or 4. So you give it to your Elch or your Kunkka and hope for the best. So for Medusa, what you want is to actually exploit her split shot, which can give negative effects to multiple units. So the best item for that would be Skadi, because it applies a slow, 100% likelihood of the slow happening. Then Basher, then after that would be Maelstrom, then after that would be reducing their armor by 3. For tanks, you must keep in mind what you are facing. You'll probably face big AoE or a combination of big AoE and other alliances. So you'll probably face some physical damage and a lot of magical damage. You want to prioritize magic defense, so the first 3 items, as well as raw HP increases. You might want to leave some armor floating. That means you don't equip chainmail, for example, on any hero, so that you allow yourself to be damaged by physical attacks and charge your mana faster. It's probably wise to avoid equipping armor in the late game to charge your mana faster. For nukes and disables, okay, we have the first is Hex, Sheepstick. Well, for Sheepstick, you would want to place it on your front line, probably the Disruptor or Tidehunter, or Techies, which doesn't have an item yet, and you would try to maneuver it in front of the enemy Tidehunter and hope it hacks it. It's a great item for 1v1 scenarios. Dagon is also good to instantly destroy an enemy big AoE unit. If, like, for example, your Disruptor have silenced it for a few seconds and it's now at half health, the Dagon will be able to kill it straight away before it can get off its AoE. Then the next two items, Bloodthorn and Shivas, they are quite rare, but if you can get it, you should try to get it. There are three items that allows you to draft better units and better items, and I would say all are very good. The first one, Embarrassment of Riches. If it appears in your first 3 rounds, it's almost a must pick because you might get screwed by the draft in later rounds, so you would be really glad you have the fourth option. It also increases the advantage of every creep round after you pick the item, and in this meta where some of the items are just useless and some are really broken, this item is really good. The next one is Smugglers. Increasing the tier of your item. I would say it's also really, really good because you could get a 4 or 5 tier item, which nowadays is really broken. And the last one, it's a must pick. It's a must pick over everything else, a higher class of criminal. The reason it's because in this meta, you're trying to draft all the big AoE stuff. And this item allows you to have a higher chance of drafting them. So this is the best item. The must pick. The first one is the Warlock item. It's a must pick because it's tier 1, so it competes with, most other crap. Although it has probably no effect until the late game or the middle late stages. But when it does have effect, it's really broken. And nowadays, Underlord is all about the late game. You can have a lose streak until round 15, no one cares. Your board just has to come alive at the right time. Humans become Heartless. I would say it's great because Heartless nowadays, it's really OP. Final Flash. I would say it's also great because your Lich, it's like each of your Lich have a refresher. That's how broken is it. It is. I mean, if you're playing anything like 3 mages, if you even have a single Razor on your board or Coddle, this thing allows you to get your stuff off twice without even having to charge your mana. It's really OP. The Wicked Intent is also OP because, well, nowadays healing is all in the meta. Early stage you have Druid healing, late stage you have Warlock healing. So you have to pick this. And the last two are the tier 5, which is really, really good as well. Nothing to say. Situational. So the first one, the dragons, pick it if you have dragons. The second one, the shaman, well, if you have a disruptor and all the other items suck, then pick it. And the last one, the scale, I mean, you should pick it if other things suck because it helps a little bit for your Tide Hunter. Not so much your Medusa because when your Medusa is focused, you're probably losing anyway. Big AoE usually wins almost any other lineup, except for some, which we are going to go through now. Alright, some of the counters. The first one counter to big AoE is big AoE. Enigma and Disruptor can actually basically interrupt your AoE and kill your units before it gets to AoE. And the 2 scaled, Tidehunter and Medusa, providing the 2 scaled buff. Of course, it's a great protection against your magic damage. But again, it's big AoE against big AoE, so nothing much to say. The next one, of course, it's Demons. Demons, they're really inconsistent, but if they get online during the late game, it's really painful. The reason is because the demons can actually physically damage your stuff before your stuff can... It can kill your stuff before your stuff gets a chance to ult, so you really have to spread apart. And if you spread apart, your AoE might not be able to hit as many demons as possible, so it's pretty hard. It depends really, it depends how many 3-star units they have. The next one is Knights, and with two 2-star Dragon Knights at the back firing at you, while the Night Shield tries to block those two knights from getting damaged by your AoE. This has the potential to beat you, and you also have the potential to beat it. I mean, if you manage to get Enigma 2, you should be able to beat this. The last one is 3-star units with VKB, so it will outlive your damage, and after that it will proceed to damage you. And the picture is slug, but it can be anything. It can be Shadow Fiend, it can be, I don't know, Wind Ranger in a 6 Hunter Alliance. It can be anything, so things to watch out for. However, I mean, such drafts are much harder than drafting big AoE, so your opponent might go for this really high risk and high reward play. And I mean, sometimes there's nothing you can do. I mean, but even second is better than nothing, you know?